just muted myself to start the show. That's a good start. All right, welcome, adventurers.
Hello, everybody.
It's Wednesday at 8:00. Daylight savings time. I wish we could save some of this daylight for the summer, but or winter, but we can't. So I guess that's what we do. 5 p.m. on the West Coast, and I just said we are live. Well, I said welcome, adventurers. I'm your guide, Sean McZoo, and this is the Reptile Show Reporter. Tonight, we're discussing the Southeast Michigan Reptile Expo. Chris will soon be with us at some places. He promised he'd be here. We'll see what happened. Last time he promised he wasn't here, but then he was here the next week. So, as usual, Bill Strand, headmaster of the Community Academy, joins me as my co-host. And let's start the video. All right, we'll take that down, see if I can manage to do all this stuff. It's been a little under the weather this week. I didn't even mention that earlier, but all right, Nate is here. James is here. Thanks for being here. We're going to show you before I even get into the other stuff, if I can actually get up. So Nate, Abby is here, obviously in the background. I don't know if you can hear her, but there we go. Nate, there's Nate. And then we're going to go up to James. There's James. And let's see. All right, Abby, we hear you. We don't know what's wrong, but I'm sure Mom's coming to get you, or already did. But there we go. Bill?
Yeah.
Any announcements?
Well, yes.
Okay.
This podcast has been around for an entire year.
Well, this isn't a podcast, Bill. This is our live version, but podcast...
it is. But the podcast version of the Reptile Show Reporter has been alive for a year.
Yes, Spotify told me this afternoon.
Well, being that I have done podcasts for a while, I've done Reptile Entrepreneur, and so I have a special interest in podcasting and podcasters, and I will say that hitting the year milestone is an exceptional accomplishment. There are most podcasts. I mean, getting past the 3rd episode is a milestone. Getting past the 10th podcast episode is a milestone. Getting to a year is a milestone, and most people don't get to the 10th podcast. So getting to a year is exceptional, and I want to recognize this accomplishment.
All right. Thanks. I've been told I've been exceptional, but they weren't being nice. So
it's all how you take it.
Yeah. All right. And so then with companion to that, podcast 24 is now live on both Spotify and YouTube. So Spotify, what else? Apple Podcast, any of those other podcast services that you want to get your podcast on. Of course, the dogs are getting into it now.
Yep.
So so we're celebrating a year. It's this is Ann again. So we that was our first podcast we did together. Number 2, I just did number 1 myself and just introduced the podcast. Number 2, we did with Ann Panette, and then I did another one recently with her, and it just launched yesterday and the day before and today. So there we go. We've come full circle.
Yeah, and I want to say, doing a podcast and doing a live show are 2 completely different things. They have 2 different skill sets and abilities. So it's just to do them both. It's not, to anybody who's on the outside, it's not a given that you can do both. And if you try to do both and you try to just say, okay, I'm just going to put my live show audio on the podcast, yeah, I mean, you can do that. You can get episodes out, but you're not really doing a podcast. You're doing a live show, and then you're just broadcasting it without video. So when you have a dedicated podcast, it's different than a live show.
So Jen just gave Abigail a hug and took her somewhere. So whatever she needed done got done. So thank you for that. Stephanie's here, so we'll talk. We'll put Stephanie up. Yeah, I don't know. I do definitely say that they're different, but it's so cool to do the live show because it's a little more off the cuff. I don't have to prepare as much. I have a list of questions. I don't have to edit it. When it's over, good or bad.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a totally different set.
Upload it to anything. Everybody gets there and they're there. But when I do the podcast, I get to meet people in a depth that I really don't ever get to meet them. I mean, one of them was a person I've known for 10 years. He's the Herps Alive, Keith from Herps Alive. I didn't know 10,000 things about him. It was like all the stuff I didn't know about him. And I've known him for 10 years, saw him at all these reptile shows, adopted all these reptiles from him, and didn't know much. So, all right, Two Turtle Tom is here talking about people in the spectrum of doing lives and podcasts and everything like that. He's in our area of our circle. Started off with me, and then went to Bill, and back on his own. And he's taking the summer off. But there he is. So we'll put his picture up here. Tom, we were just talking about how we're celebrating 1 year of the podcast. You've been one of the podcasted. I don't know what the podcastees. I don't guess on the podcast. I guess we could say. So there we go. So we celebrate you as well. And what's this?
So you've been doing lives for 2 years and podcast for 1. Is that correct?
Yes, lives for 2+ years and podcast for 1. Yes. So, and yes, I did know about Keith's standard bred horse racing. I've known about that for a few years. But I'm also Facebook friends with him. So I learned a lot, even though I was Facebook friends with him. So that's why he mostly does that. You love my style. I don't know about that, but I do the best I can do. And it's just fun for me. That's why I don't have to do anything. This isn't a monetary thing. This is just fun for me. And I just got to keep reminding myself that sometimes, because, when it gets to podcasts, I was doing 2 podcasts a month, and this summer I went to 1 podcast a month, and in my competitive brain, it was like the end of the world. That's just the person I am. Give myself a challenge and I'm up to it, or I think I failed. But I've got 24 in 1 year, so I guess I did get 2 a month. So I don't know how that happened, but I think it took me too long to edit the first podcast and get it up. That's why it's probably 15 months of being a podcaster, but 3 of them no one knew I was a podcaster yet because I hadn't put one out. So, anyways, let's see. Nate, Two Turtle Tom, they're talking back and forth. So, all right. So what else? Let's see. If we're still not on Facebook Live anymore, I don't think I'm going to go back to it. I don't think that it really hampers the show at all. Very few people were coming in from Facebook at that time. And Podcast 24 is live. We're celebrating a year. And we're talking about the Southeast Michigan Reptile Show. Chris isn't here yet. I haven't had an opportunity to check my he usually contacts me via was Instagram. I haven't checked my Instagram feed to see if something happened, but we can talk about it intelligently, at least for a little bit. So
I can ask some questions. I would like to know very much what your experiences are after this year of podcasting. Mm-hmm. What was the biggest challenge to get to this point?
Podcasting wise?
Yep.
Finding people to podcast about, convincing people to go on the podcast. Half the people were reluctant to go on and didn't want to be there and really shy. And I don't know why, because being on a live show is much more challenging than being on a podcast. If you say something stupid on the podcast, you just push the down button and you just cut it out. And I always do that. I'm the guy who mostly gets dumped. I get cut the most. The first thing I learned being on my podcast, the podcast was, it's not about me, so quit talking so much. But sometimes, even then, I learned that sometimes you do have to talk a little bit to bring the other person out. Yep. But you can cut yourself, what you said out that made them say what they were going to say. So
very good insight.
It was the third time I was talking about the iguana I had when 30 something years ago, that I said, I got to keep cutting this out. People don't want to hear this about me again. But the person, the podcast guest didn't know her, or might not have heard that other podcast and heard that. So I just said it anyways. They said something complimentary and I cut me out because people don't want to be bored about what I have to say. So that was the first big thing. The second thing was that you just have to pause if you say something dumb, and you just pause for a brief second, and then you could pick up. And it's a lot easier to cut things if you pause and then you have a natural pickup. I do actually cut a lot of stuff because I still talk too much. And I find myself, if I find myself that I'm talking for more than a couple minutes, I immediately say I have to cut something because it's not about me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And so I do cut it mercilessly. Sometimes I cut a 1 hour episode down to 30 minutes because I'm like, but I'm enjoying myself making the podcast. So the conversation back and forth with me and the guest is tremendous and important. And I wouldn't give it up, and I wouldn't get away from it. But it's not always important to the people listening because it's the repeating of something I've said to other people or something about me that everyone knows that's watching this live show. So it's essentially unimportant to everyone else except for me talking to that person. So that's a conversation. And that's how I bring out people who don't want to talk too much. Now, other times, like people who are like, you're one of the podcast guests, or Chris Anderson, or other people like that. Clint from Clint's Reptiles. I didn't have to. I didn't have to be even there. I could have just said go, and an hour later I could have just said, okay, thank you for being on, because he's just great. He was like, 3 or 4 statements is all I had to make, and I didn't have to worry about it, and I didn't have to cut it very much because he was right spot on and going after it, and so. But then there were other people, like I would ask him a question, they'd say yes. No.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. I don't know as long as the guy, and it's just like, oh my, I'm gonna have to make this into an hour. And but then once you got people going, you figure out what they're interested in, and they just get going. They just take off. And so the first half of the podcast may be me and them back and forth, yeses and nos, and then boom, they start talking, and you figure it out. Then that's when you know when you got them talking about it. And it seems like the first 10 questions are yes and no's, and that's usually why I get in the what's your favorite reptile, what was your first reptile, what reptile would you have if you could have anyone that you wanted, what first reptile show did you go to, and what was it like. So it's just more like that. So that's what I end up doing to them, so, or for them, to get them comfortable talking. What has been your experience, Bill? Let's just talk about it. Bill's got 4 podcasts, one for 10 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Second one for 5 years, and 2 others. And it's like, you're not inexperienced by any stretch.
What aspect shall I answer as what I've learned, or what's your biggest challenge? My biggest challenge is wanting to do too much. And so, like you said, I've actually got 5. You're right. No, 4 podcasts. Yeah. Officially I've got 4 podcasts. And the thing is, each one came at a certain time where I had a certain need or a certain goal. And then things changed. And so they faded. They just kind of faded away because things changed in my life and I needed to go on to do something different. And so I think really the biggest challenge is to figure out which medium I'm going to focus on and which one will serve me the best. Because even though I'm most well known as a podcaster, my Chameleon Academy outreach is not a podcast outreach. It's an outreach that uses podcasting, but it also uses YouTube videos. It also uses email newsletters. It also uses a number of different approaches. And so I end up spinning my wheels trying to figure out what's the best way forward. And I waste a lot of time doing that. And unfortunately, I don't know a solution to that until I find a certain combination of things that I say, okay, this is really working for me.
Okay.
So
I just texted Chris to see where he's at, if
okay.
he's joining us or not. But I realized I just had his phone number, so I didn't have to contact him.
But I am going towards an equilibrium where I'm very happy. This digital virtual campus, Community Academy virtual campus, is really the culmination of what I was trying to get at. And so I think you're going to be able. I am going to be getting to a point where I am happier with what I am, my collection of things that I am going to do, and I'm going to be figuring out which of those things I need to keep on, because I got this guy who keeps telling me I need sleep.
And, I don't know who that is, but he's right.
And I agree with him. So I have to do this for my life. And so I'm on my way to do that. But there's so many opportunities for all of us to do our outreach. And it's really easy to just overextend ourselves. So got to be careful. Oh, hey, Misty Mountain Fans is here.
All right. Who's that?
She's someone that keep trying to ask her out.
Chris just said, "Oh yeah, I forgot." He first said, "Who is this?" So that was like, all right. That was like, oh no,
you didn't get reported and blocked.
I'm like no, that was a text. So I'm like, oops, he thinks I'm a spammer. I'm like, where are you? He's like, who is this? I'm like, it's Sean McNeely. Come on, man. All right. This is Chris and I did see him. That's not me and him at the show. This is me. Oh no, that was me and him at the show this time. So, all right. So I don't know if he's coming on or not, but we can work around it. I was at the show. I drove 3.5 hours to get there. So we can talk about it. So, but otherwise, what would you say to a person looking to do a podcast, Bill? Do it. Don't do it. Why should you do it?
If they ask, should they do it?
Mm-hmm.
I would ask them what their motivation for doing it is, because as you've found out, it is a rich opportunity to learn about a certain subject, about a certain people. If you want to if you have a passion for something and you want to learn more about that or a certain community, a podcast is an amazing ability to do that. It's easier to do a podcast than it is a YouTube channel. If you want to learn about something. Oh no. All right.
Well, you can at least be in the chat. Yeah. I think he's off and about somewhere. So
okay.
So what's Tom have to say?
Choose your co-host very carefully. Yeah, well,
I don't have a co-host, so there. That's live shows. Choose your co-host very carefully, though. But he's he's got a podcast with turtles and all kinds of other. I don't know how many podcasts he's got, but I think he's got at least 2. So there you go. And he's got live shows on Thursday. He matches our Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday pattern. So,
but you gotta
wait a minute. What's going on?
Yeah, I'd say so. But if somebody actually is interested, there are so many different styles of podcast. I bristle at that because a podcast is the audio RSS feed. That's the way it should be. But now we've got video podcasts and Spotify and YouTube and these live sessions, all this kind of stuff. All of these different forms achieve different goals. And so if you are clear on what you want, then choose the format that will give you what you want. If you want followers, do a YouTube video. If you want to develop a community, live sessions will do that. If you want to develop personal relationships with people, with hosts, an audio-only podcast is an incredible way to do that. And so it just matters what exactly you want.
And if you're crazy, do a video podcast so you can put it on Spotify and YouTube and go crazy because that's all you know.
Keep saying all these different forms, you can fake it. like, yeah, I mean, we could take this, what we're doing right now, we could put it as a YouTube video. We could do it. We're doing a live. We can put it as an audio podcast, and we can just broadcast this on all the different mediums. But doing that, it doesn't take advantage of this very subtle and special characteristics of each of the medium. So yeah, you just decide what you want.
All right. Why don't we talk about the Southeast Michigan Reptile Expo? So I was there this weekend. Chris was there with me. Of course, it's his show, so that's why he was there. He was there long before me, and hopefully not too long afterwards. So the things I talk about, it was a great show. It had a lot of variety. It was in a nice building. It was there was good control of the environment, air conditioning, and what have you. There was a birthday party next door. It was kind of interesting to see that. What? Oh, Jen says it was a graduation party. So yes, it really was a graduation party.
As long as there's cake.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't walk in there, but it was easy to find. The front door was great. Parking was free, like Bill doesn't. And
Gosh, what the heck?
The cost to get in was very reasonable.
What?
I think it was $5, but
come
$6.
on.
I don't even remember. I paid it, but he was gonna let me in for free, and I'm like, nah, I gotta pay. I don't want to say that I got it in free and have to give some kind of a what do you call it? Notification to everyone that I got it in free. So you can't trust anything I say, because I could be bought for $5 apparently. But
you add up the parking and the admission, and it's cheaper for me to fly to Ohio and go to one of your shows.
Then we can prove you and I both exist. We could get in the same spot, take a picture, and not do something that we had to do, and figure it out, Bill. So anytime you want to come up here, we could go to a Michigan show, we could go to Ohio show, we go.
Still working on it. There probably will be a time. There
will be. We'll figure it out. So it was really a nice show. There was a lot of variety. Jennifer's pointing out that there are 4 or 5. 4. There are 4 more micro squirrels.
What?
I guess we're going to have to create a colony. There's this whole big plan about how we're going to move from here to there. I was under the weather this week, and I think that got past me somehow, that we're going to keep doing the micro squirrels, and we're going to keep a whole lot of them, because they're not going very fast, because she doesn't want to sell them for what people want to give for them. So she is going to keep them, much like my chameleon stuff.
I know how that goes.
Products. I don't want to sell them. So there's 4 more. And so there you go. I don't know. What does that total bring it to? 10 babies and 2 adults. So there you go. So 12. Well,
all right.
What? I know you've only had them like 6 months or less, I think. So there you go.
What's going on with Two Turtle Tom and Nate?
I don't know. What's he doing?
OEO. Are they busting my chops? Did I say something wrong?
No, Ohio. We OHIO. That's all about Ohio. They're from Ohio, Bill. That's you don't know.
Did I say it wrong?
Ohio State. No, I don't know. I think he's just saying it's great, because that's the way we say Ohio's great. One says OH, the other one says IO, and both of those two live in Ohio. So that's here. We're gonna do the thing right. So this is how you do it. Oh, wait a minute. I just moved.
Is this a cultural thing?
It is, but let's see. Hey, Tom. What did I just do? Oh, there we go. See, you go OH, and then the other person goes IO, and it spells Ohio. There you go. And then you put a smiley face after, because Tom just did that. But there you go. Oh, hey. Oh, you know what I'm saying? It's a cheer for Ohio State mostly, but the whole state, and families of 4 do it themselves everywhere. So there you go. All right, so that's let's go back to the Reptile Expo. So it's real.
We can't say KLLAF or
CALLAF. She's doing a cheer for California, but she's
Well,
like,
thank you. I
no,
appreciate
she's
that.
making fun of it. And she's saying,
Oh, well,
you can't
you know
say
what?
CALIFOR, you know. and-
Negative attention is still attention.
that I agree. So, Panther Palette, who is that?
That's Julie.
Oh, we don't have a picture, right? And that's the third or fourth time she's been on. So, we need to get a picture, Julie. All right. Oh, go Bucks. There you go.
No gang
All
signs.
right. All right. Well, she wins anyways. There you go. All right. So, so other important things about the facility. The facility was very nice. It wasn't phenomenal, but it was nice. It was comfortable to walk around. Someone actually asked Chris on one of his posts if it was a handicap accessible, and we pushed Abigail all around. So, yes, it is handicap accessible. We didn't even have to lift her or do anything. Let's see. This is the sign out front. This is one of his
nice
signs
sign.
in the corner. That's really nice and professional. There's Chris right by the sign.
Hey,
in the front door.
Chris!
There you go. I saw him. He was waiting for me to come in. I don't think that was what happened, but it just happened to happen at the right time. And then you walk inside, and there you go. Yep, Riley's grad party.
Oh,
and to
man.
the left was the grad. That's a much smaller room. But
Which room
and
has the
then-
cake?
inside to the right, that was all the way down to the right from the middle, and then inside to the middle, and just inside the door to the left. So I actually didn't have a picture that's better to the left. Maybe. Wait a minute. No, I don't. Then there was a person carrying an iguana around, which I didn't realize there are two different people in Michigan who do this with their iguanas at shows, because I saw one at the Taylor show, and this person was at the sailing show and this show. So it's a crazy thing. And this show is not connected to any other show. This is Chris's and Chris's alone. It's Southeast Michigan Reptile Expo. That's what we're talking about today, not to be confused. I don't want to get into that kind of a mess again. So let's see, who else did I see there? So I saw D&D Krusty's. Of course, that's Dad from D&D Krusty's. And he's on one of my podcasts. And that was Abigail, proving that she could get in there, because we're in the back there. So that definitely proves the room. And let's see, that's a close up of the two of us. The gentleman from Elkhorn, who was our vendor of the week. He has chameleons, and right next to it are Euromastics, which he really likes. Sells a lot of bugs. Those are the bugs he was selling. And what else do I have? I don't have any other. Oh, wait a minute. No, I met someone who sells spiders. There's always somebody selling spiders at the shows. And what?
It's always a girl.
And this person, actually, her husband was there as well. She wasn't there very long. But he wasn't there very long. He was in and out. But I actually bought a cage for our spider. Our spider isn't nearly as big. But you know what? Our spider is huge, and it's in a little tiny deli cup, and we couldn't find it yesterday. We're just like, oh no, do we lose it? But then it came out later. It was about, I'm like, how do you lose something so big? But it was in there just with the flowers. So we thought it jumped because it was a jumping spider. And this is Chris's sign and his display, which is right inside the door. He got a prominent location for himself there, which is good. It's important. All right. He was waiting for me. Oh, yes. Okay. So he was waiting for me, because I did tell him I'd be there in a few minutes when I was close. I told him I'd be there at 2:30. And she has Euromastics. I really like those, but I don't know much about them. I know a little bit, but enough to be dangerous, but not enough to do anything important with them. So let's see. All right, so let's go back to brand. Get rid of that. And what else do we want to know about the show? So there was food there. They were serving food. I didn't get any of it, but they were serving food. I wasn't hungry. I had already eaten my dinner on the way, or my lunch on the way there. The tables were standard 4x8s with covers. It's scheduled to go monthly. I don't know, because it's 3.5 hours, if I'm going to go there every month. I think I might rotate the Michigan shows, because they're 2.5 to 3.5 hours. So, and they're different weeks. Usually sailing is the first Saturday, Taylor's the second Saturday, and Chris's appears to be the fourth Saturday. Chris, is that true that yours is actually the fourth Saturday, or is it just I think it's at the end, or is it the last Saturday? What is it? Let us know what it is. Fruit. Why is food at reptile shows gross? You get more salmonella from chicken than you get from a reptile show, and you're washing your hands all over the place. Everybody's got hand wash. You go into some of these food trucks, fourth or fifth Saturday. That's what Chris said. Okay, so you go to these food trucks. That's gross. You know where to wash your hands. Nothing to do. They're out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know. I don't agree. I don't know. Weigh in, Bill. Food at reptile shows. Gross, not gross. Don't care. Don't know.
Oh, I'm fine with it.
What?
I'm fine with it.
All right, 2-1. You lose to Turtle Tom. You don't get 2 votes, even though your name is 2.
Yeah, but that coccidia is not going to infect human beings. That's not zoonotic. And besides, they can't laugh at hand sanitizer when they're going down the drain.
Anyways, if you're not exposed to different things, you won't grow stronger. The immune system needs to be worked
right.
If you were living in bottle and you were full of hand sanitizer and you never got any bugs, you would die if anything got to you. But if you get stronger and stronger, it's not whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger is really actually fairly true. When it comes to, and dirt and people who live on the farms and they get into dirt and they have far less allergies and asthma and eczema than all the other people who live in the city trying to be, super, and it's like kids. You have your first kid, you sterilize everything, whatever. And then by the time you have your fourth or fifth kid, they're picking up pizza from the floor. You go, what day do we eat pizza? Oh, Tuesday? Oh, that hasn't been a week.
Yeah, so those of us who grew up in the city, we need reptile shows.
Exactly.
For our health. Although what does drive me nuts is any bathroom that has a turn knob for a faucet. That is the worst, stupidest idea.
Well, the problem is I'm so light that I don't have enough melanin because faucets don't see me. I put my hands under them and they don't see me unless I'm tan.
Well, I'm okay with a lever to turn it on and off because at least you're touching different sides of the lever when you have a clean hand and a dirty hand.
There you go.
But a knob, you are literally touching the exact same spot that you turned it on with to turn it off.
Or the day out as you walk out the door, you have something to use your foot, so you're not touching someone who didn't.
I love the stuff with the feet. Oh yeah.
You just can't touch your hand, or you get your elbow in there, whatever. But anyways, all right, what's going on? Okay, so it's true. All right, 2-2 Tom is grossed out. I guess it's probably because of his life, he's lived, and all the things he knows. But sometimes we know too much. Sometimes we just know too much. But on the physician side, I think people who, don't worry about all that stuff and do actually better. But that's not a medical opinion. This isn't a medical show. But I take food down to my reptile room all the time. I'm not usually eating it on my way down there, but what have you. I don't care. I don't seem to. I wash my hands, but I don't seem to.
All right.
With it, so there you go.
I haven't a whole lot of
salmonella yet. I've been doing it for 30-something years, so there you go. Proof's in the pudding, I guess. So there you go. But anyways, we're way off topic. Let's see. All right. So what other questions do you have about the show, Bill?
I want to know what kind of animals are generally there. You said there was a guy, this elkhorn with a chameleon.
Mm-hmm. There's everything there. Let me see. I got my whole list of animals that'll cue me to think about. I'm gonna pull it back up and see what actually was there. So they had spiders. They had let's see. They had New Caledonia geckos, they had crested geckos, they had chihuahuas, they had gargoyles. I didn't see any leachianus. They had chameleon geckos and leopard geckos. They had bearded dragons. What other lizards did they have? I don't. They had corn snakes. They had ball pythons, as they always do. They had a bunch of boas, and one guy who had almost all boas. They had hognose. They had milk snake. They had retics. They didn't have Burmese or anacondas. They had. Did they have Jacksons? I didn't see any Jacksons, which is good because usually they're wild caught and poorly cared for. I didn't see any veileds. I saw panthers. I didn't see any other chameleons. I saw red-footed tortoises, no red-eared sliders, sulcatas. Let's see. Bug-wise, they had spiders, they had roaches, dubious. I didn't see any silkworms. They had hornworms. I met multiple places with isopods. They had. I didn't see. I saw some fancy mice and some regular mice and some feeder mice and some other feeder stuff. They had let's put down the list. They had the what are those things called that I just said? The ones that need it very hot. The
mastics.
Uromastics. They had a bunch of those. They had let's see, what else did they have? They had iguanas, of course. That one woman from a rescue had iguanas. She also had things to put iguanas in. It was a very tame iguana, even though it was a rescued iguana. I was very impressed. What else did I see? Ball pythons I talked about. They had a whole table of people selling branches, which were taken from nature, and they were only $1 or $2 each. So that was really good price. Let's see. What else? I don't think, Chris, anything I missed? Are you out there still? Oh, no, bearded dragons. Chris had bearded dragons, but I think I said that.
Yeah. How about frogs?
Frogs. I don't think anyone had frogs. There's a lot of stuff. It was, taking in a new show, there's always a lot of stuff and you forget what you see, but I don't think I saw any frogs.
Okay.
There's a couple tables that had a whole assortment of things. But I don't think I saw any frogs. What else?
Well, frogs. I mean, you never mentioned any Europlatus, but those are kind of rare, so I wouldn't expect those to be there.
I didn't see any Europlatus. Other unusual geckos, I didn't see anything other than the leopards and the New Caledonia geckos. I didn't see any Europlatus, so.
Oh, but Chris says that there was one guy who had a couple of frogs.
Oh, okay, there you go. Oh, my thing wasn't updating. Oh yeah, whatever. Okay. One guy had a couple frogs. Are there any rescues at the show? The one woman was had been from a rescue, but I don't think she was there as part of the rescue. Like Chris said, a couple smaller ones. And Nate was asking how the pectinata was settling in. Right before the show, I had 15 minutes. I walked over and I picked him up and I held him and he sat on my finger and didn't try to get away. It's tremendously different than any other iguana type lizard I've ever had. I just picked him up and I held him with my hand. And I didn't have to make sure I had a thumb on him somewhere. He just sits in my hand. He doesn't care. I usually sit him down next to the food so he knows that I'm a good thing. And so the good things happen after I pick him up, even though the food was already in the container. And I, missed him regularly, and he's shedding for like the 5th time since third or fourth time since Tinley just this spring. So he's shedding away. Actually, my frill dragon has been shedding like crazy. He shed 3 or 4 times completely, but he's like at some part of his body is always shedding. It seems like nowadays, but he just keeps shedding. And he's growing, and it's like, how big is this guy going to get? I'm like, I'm going to have to get a new cage for him now. I didn't think the cage was going to get small that fast, or actually even get small eventually. But I'm going to have to build him some kind of monstrosity that I could put somewhere. But now that I don't have Ann Panette's geckos, there's plenty of room. Of course, now that all the microsquirrels are growing out of falling out of the ceiling like tribbles, I know people who don't know Star Trek don't know what I'm talking about, but What's the Trouble with Tribbles? It's a classic episode, and you'll learn why you shouldn't have micro squirrels.
That's right.
Oh yeah, giant lead-tail gecko. At the Elkhorns. Yes, there was. Yes, he did have one. So
Okay.
all right. What else? What else do you want to know?
Let's see. Okay, either a smaller one. Okay.
There were people with feeders. There were no big name companies. Like there was no, but you only see those at Tinley. You know but you know Taylor actually has the Josh Frogs, but that's their home show, so that's why they go to that one.
All right, Two Turtle Tom is being mean.
You know, maybe, but you over our dead body, over Jen's dead body, and I think yours would start first because if you tried to kill her, I'd have you. So no. All right, so even if that's 3 out of 4, me, Jen, and your wife would not allow it. So that's not going to happen. Well, but when they start getting more and more, maybe I used to like deer. Deer, like I have 6 or 7 deer every day in my yard, and it's like they're just like rats. They're worse than squirrels. Not micro squirrels, but real squirrels. But they're annoying. So they eat all our plants and everything. So I will not be going to Schaumburg this year. I decided that we're going to skip that one. It's in 2 weeks, and I'm actually going to go up to Taylor and pick up a picture. I commissioned a picture. You can see actually on Facebook if you look under Art by Michelle. Is it Art by Michelle? Yes, Art by Michelle. Her YouTube or her Facebook or Instagram post, she's actually showing off my painting that I had her.
Right.
And you can actually see it in the upper right hand corner is my logo that's being faded into the distance or faded into the thing. But it's got a big elephant in the middle, and it's got old world and new world stuff on one side and the other side. I think it was got between the two. So old world snakes and new world snakes and iguanids, and all kinds of other reptiles. It's a really neat thing. It's beautiful. I'm so glad I'm going to put it up in my office. I hope if it makes it to my office and doesn't get stuck here, so that I see it every day. But that was my original intention, was to put it in my office, but it's gotten so cool. I'm not sure that I'm going to do it that way. But all right. Well, I'm going to Michelle. I'm sure she will. They've been busy lately. They didn't make any of the shows they would usually make. They miss sailing and everything else. So she's been very busy with her kids and other things happening. But I think she would. They're really close, so not even an hour away, I don't think. But we'll see if I can work that out for you there, Chris. We'll see what kind of magic I can do, maybe or not do. All right, Bill. I think we need to let this episode go. It's kind of gotten off the rails and come back again, but that's the fun of these episodes, these lives. You come here, you don't know what to expect. Even the hosts don't know what to expect.
That's
Bill
right.
doesn't know what to expect on
you do a live.
He doesn't
you
even
need to present a structure and be okay if it's thrown away.
And Bill doesn't even look and see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes he asks me, "What are we talking about this week?"
I'm just
like
here
10 minutes before the show, but he does show up. It's fun that way. But it's fun to do that. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good night.
See ya.
And happy birthday to America! 248 years tomorrow. So there we go.